Well, I'm going to do what I hope is a short video on changing a generator belt on a Farmall 300. And this family's been in this tractor's been in our family for about 55 years. And as I was starting to do a little bit of service, you know, we neglected it for a really long time. And noticed that this fan belt right here, it's just about ready to break. There's a fracture through it right down there. You can't see it maybe, but anyway, that generator belt needs to be changed. And so I started researching this a little bit online, and it's a really nasty little job, especially on a piece of machinery that's, you know, this belt might be original to the tractor. Not sure, but as I was researching it, I found that you've got an adjustable pulley right here, and you've got to get this belt moved off of the lower pulley so that you can get this belt moved forward off of all of the rest of them. And the way this assembly works is this front half of this pulley or sheave has threads, and as you start to turn it this way, then this front half of the pulley will move towards the radiator, making this wider to where you get some slop and looseness in the belt, and then you're able to pull it off of the bottom pulley, hopefully. Now, getting this half of this pulley worked loose is a son of a bee, really. You start off with this little set screw right here being in this hole that locks it in place. Now, the set screw, believe it or not, has a straight cut in it, and trying to move that with a screwdriver after it's been in there for 65 years, not really easy to do. Anyway, your first task is get that set screw out of there. Your next task is taking and getting this sheave broke loose. So what I did is I started off with a real fine wire brush and wire brushed the threads right there, cleaned them up really good. Then I hit it with a lot of PB Blaster, and I even shot PB Blaster down this hole as well. And then I started tapping on it with a block of oak, kind of against these bosses right there. And what you got to do is move that boss down into a position where you can whack on it. And so you can see that one shined up pretty good right there. I've been hitting on that. Started off with a block of oak, didn't even budge it. And if you read online, there's stories about people busting that casting. It's cast iron, so it doesn't like to be hammered on anyway. Nevertheless, it was stuck. So what I did is I took this 8-inch long, 1/2-inch carriage bolt and beat on that right there. And to start with, I put a couple of gauge marks on both halves right there so I could see whether or not I was really doing any good. So I'd recommend that you do that. Take a magic marker or some kind of a scribe and make a cross mark across the two pieces so you can see whether or not you're even moving this thing. I finally got it broke loose, and as I finally got it to move, I'm back to using a 3/4 by 3/4 piece of oak, hammering on that. I've already got this pulley moved probably 1/8 of an inch forward. You can see that I'm starting to get some good slack in the belt. I'm going to continue to move that pulley on forward just to make sure that it's loose, so that the next guy does this long after I'm dead and gone. At least it was serviced once good in 2021. So I'll try to give you a short little video of what you're doing here. And you want to make sure you're not confused about which way this thread works. It is a standard right-hand thread, and so as you turn this front half of that pulley this way, it will move that way. And so I've kind of finally got it to where it's moving fairly good, so I'm using a piece of oak and a 3-pound machinist hammer. You can kind of see there's a grease work right there in the boss of that casting. And you can see I'm starting to move it pretty good now. And I think another way of doing this is if you had to, you could just say that the two belts are just toast and you're going to replace them both. You could take an acetylene torch and probably heat the front half of that collar up a little bit if you had to move it better. So I finally got to the place where it'll move kind of freely. You can see that front half of that pulley moving back and forth. When I started off, this gap between the fan part and that front half of that pulley was 5/16, maybe 3/8 of an inch. Now it's down to almost nothing, and you can see that it's turning, and I've got this pulley about as wide as it'll go right now, and so I'm hoping, yeah, okay, so now I got the belt off of the lower pulley, no problem at all. I've got to kind of wiggle it through a place down there below. In fact, I might have to break loose the old crank shaft, hand crank shaft, to where I can get that belt through the gap there. Once that's done, then I can take this belt, throw it up over the fans if I have to, and then take this one and work it forward over the whole assembly. And I'd like to shake the hand of the engineer that designed that, and then punch him right in the nose. One of the stupidest designs I can ever think of. So I ran into just a little bit of a snag here. This Farmall 300 had the capability of also being hand cranked. Now, our family's had this tractor for over 55 years. It didn't come with a hand crank. We don't know where there is a hand crank. We've never used the hand crank. Nevertheless, the part in here that engages with a crankshaft right in here is tight enough that I can't get this belt through that gap. So I hate to do it, but I'm going to just cut this part back probably about 3/8 of an inch or whatever, so that I can slip that belt between the end of the crankshaft and that hand crank feature that we've never used. It appears to just be rusted solid. Maybe it's a bad solution, but it's a solution. So I use that, a little grinder with a cut wheel, and I used a Sawzall to shorten that thing enough that I could then get this belt off. And one thing that IH did, I guess, is they just fan shroud a little bit. There's a little notch in the fan shroud where you can push the belt forward and kind of work it around the fan blades and get it off. Anybody that's doing this job might want to just consider changing both belts at once, and then just hope that you'll outlive the tractor. So hopefully you can see this, but right here is threaded, and I was actually able to get that set screw out without a lot of trouble. And after wire brushing the threads, lubricating them with some WD-40, you can see that that's your adjustment for the belt tension on a generator, if you're still running a generator, and we still are, a 6-volt generator. After all these years, I know a lot of these have been converted over to 12-volt alternators. I think I can understand why. Anyway, you get that opened up big enough, you can go down below on the other pulley and kind of roll that belt off, and then get it off here, and then go down below where you've got a notch in the elevator, or in the notch in the radiator shroud. You probably can't see that, but anyway, there's my prize. After working on it all this time, there's my prize right there. You can see how bad that belt was. What a struggle. Well, you've got this thing apart. Open up this sheave all the way back towards the generator and then get in there with a little wire brush. You can buy these like at welding supply stores or stainless steel. And then get in there and brush those threads real good. So that it'll adjust well for you. Maybe give it a little shot of WD as well. And then work that pulley open and closed a few times to make sure the adjustment feature was working good on it the way that you want it to. You can see the threads back there now and the rust that's coming off of them. Anyway, work that thing and get it to where it's working good for you. So I've worked the new fan belt right here over the fan blades. Actually started on the other side of the tractor. There's kind of a notch out of the radiator shroud where you can get this belt around the blades one at a time, and then you drop this belt into that groove and then it'll fit over this one, and then you can pick it up and move it out onto the correct sheave. And so it's in there now, and you can see it's real loose. And IH's way back in the day of adjusting belt tension, you can see as you screw those pulleys together, it starts to tension the belt. So that's how you do it. And it's great when everything's freed up and everything works the way it should, but tractors that have sat for a long time, not quite so great of a way of doing things.